Well, it has been a rather interesting. It's like we lived a full year already, Dunnigan. I mean, crying out loud. When I wrote my annual forecast, I do that every January, and it's always kind of I just kind of do it for fun because, when you're right, like I've been, a couple years prior to last year, nobody cares. It's like, yeah, anybody could see that coming. You're no genius, And then when you're wrong, like last year, where I thought price would go up, but this whole transitory thing took over, that everybody, it's all out there for anybody to see forever, right? But heading into this year, and again, as I wrote this back in early January, it's pretty clear where this was headed. And we're now headed there. We're getting there a lot faster than I kind of thought we would. And obviously the events in Ukraine are speeding that up. But we entered the year, under this cloud of, uncertainty where the Fed was going to be, they're going to hike rates. What were they saying? 8 or 9 times, some of these bank analysts, which is just ridiculous. And we'd gone down this path before, coming out of the first QE in 2009, it was a one-off. And the balance sheet was going back to, the levels it began, and by November of 2010, here came QE2 and then QE3 and gold and precious metal soared. And then in 18, the Fed was running the balance sheet off and rates were going to go back to normal, whatever that was. And finally, the stock market broke, Powell pivoted, and gold went up, 75% through 19 and into the summer of 20, and silver more than doubled. And so I figured, well, we're headed down that path again because there was no way the Fed would be able to hike rates above the inflation rate. Okay. And I always figured, Dunnigan, that would sink in probably by summertime, and then the narrative would begin to shift. And then, here would go the metals again. But now with what's going on in Ukraine, the narrative is shifting really fast. I mean, as we record, crude oil is pushing 105. Okay, that's the most important commodity on the planet. All the metals, base metals, are going through the roof, so you can't build anything without huge expense. You still got these supply chain disruptions. And what? Russia's the number one exporter of wheat in the world. Okay, so wheat, as we record this on the 1st of March, wheat is limit up. Can't go any further today. Who knows what the price will be when things get, are allowed to trade again. But corn, I mean, you mentioned like all the inputs that corn goes into, not only food, but fuel, right? As a fuel additive. And corn is going to be the amount of acres that eventually get planted in the U.S. is going to drop dramatically this year because anhydrous ammonia and potash and all the other the fertilizers you need to plant corn are through the roof. So anyway, the point is this idea that inflation is going to come down, rates are going to go over inflation, so real rates are going to be positive, and the Fed's going to get control of all this. It's all nonsense. I mean, everybody now can see that that's bogus. They were going to see it eventually. But this now just makes it a done deal. And frankly, now the metals are kind of rushing to catch up. It's going to be, regardless of how this all plays out, maybe pray that the Ukraine thing settles down, later this week, whatever. And we don't have to worry about, further widening of the conflict. But the implications of this are so long lasting that the Fed's never going to be able to play catch up. In fact, they'll probably start talking about easing and providing liquidity going forward. And again, this will drive the metals higher, which is what obviously I worry about the most. Well, and I think it's important for people to realize that, Putin and the Russians didn't decide to do this like a few weeks ago. Okay. I've been following this. I mean, look, if you're going to track gold like I do at TF Metals Report, you got to follow everything, If you're like you just follow tech stocks, or if you're a generalist and you're just counting waves on a chart or something, then okay, fine. But if you're going to track gold, I mean, you got to keep track of geopolitics and global economics and monetary policy and macroeconomics. I mean, all this stuff. So 8 years ago is when this all began with what was called the Maidan Revolution, where the pro-Russia prime minister named Yanukovych was forced out and forced to flee the country. And you could see that. I was telling people on my site and on Twitter, the date you had to watch was February 21st, because February 21st is the day that the Ukrainians celebrated that event. What happened on Monday, February 21st, Dunnigan? Well, that was the day that Russia formally recognized those republics and began to move troops in. And then a couple days later, here we are, right? So they've been planning this for literally years, okay? They have to have anticipated the West response. That's all part of the war games, that the Pentagon plays, that NATO plays, and everything else. So this idea of, kicking them out of the SWIFT system and limiting their ability to transact globally has to have been part of the plan. You recall, we've been talking about de-dollarization for as long as you and I have known each other, right? And that's maybe the biggest, I guess, potential outcome outside of nuclear annihilation. The biggest potential outcome of this event is people like the Russians and the Chinese are now seeing, okay, you're going to use that financial nuclear weapon on us if we, go out of line, if we pursue what we perceive to be our own interests. So therefore, we better have another way to transact business set up. So when you kick us out, we've got a way to do it. That's probably coming next. In the end, what that does is it provides not only the Russians and maybe the Chinese, anybody else that wants to work on some alternative platform, a way to do it. That eventually, ultimately, lessens the demand for dollars, right? Okay, well, let's go back to Econ 101. If demand for anything is falling while the supply is rising, think oranges, I don't know, used cars. Demand for used cars is rising while the supply is falling, so the price is going up. If the demand is falling while supply is rising, the value goes down. And that's ultimately what's going to happen to the dollar out of all of this. Again, which augurs for preparing ahead of time financially and materially for much higher prices for things in the years to come.
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information. And it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now, let's continue.
Do you want to know one thing about crypto? I made over 3,000% in profit in a few weeks. Fact is, the traditional financial system, the traditional money system makes you poor, not rich. If you want to earn $500,000, $1 million, you have to wait until you're 50, 60, 70 in the traditional financial system, and you probably will still be broke. And you will be old. This is not a sexy combination, as you can imagine. But the question is, how can you start in crypto and make these profits? Where to invest? Where to start? My name is Gunnar and I'm from Germany, as you can hear, and things are a little bit different in Germany. More about that later on. Fact is, there are lots of different cryptocurrencies. It's a gigantic universe where beginners and professionals get easily lost. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. There are 7 key steps you need to follow to become successful in this market. You have to know them, and if you fail one of them, it's literally impossible to succeed in this market. Just an example, one of the key points is your exchange, and one of the biggest are, for example, Binance and Coinbase. These are trusted and well-established exchanges, but, and this is a big but, you won't find the super profitable coins on those exchanges. The unknown super profitable coins that get gigantic profits are not traded on those kind of exchanges. They are traded on much smaller insider platforms that are barely known. And I can tell you what those super secret exchanges are and why they are so profitable. And another super important thing are the right information sources. The point is, the internet is gigantic. There are hundreds and hundreds of YouTube channels, blogs, pages, and much more. And there are also market makers and influencers. For example, Elon Musk, he is not a crypto guy, but the moment he recommended Dogecoin, it went through the roof, to the moon, so to say. But why did he recommend it? Where did he hear it from? He didn't hear it from newspapers. And believe me, he is listening to someone. But you have to know who, and you have to react before he is reacting. This is really, really important. And these are only 2 of the 7 steps you have to follow in order to be successful in crypto. And if you want to know all of these steps in much more detail, and if you want to have a comprehensive checklist, here's what you should do. There is a link below this video. Click on this link and you will get the opportunity to subscribe to my channel. Click on the link and you will see a video where I explain the next steps. So see you soon. Click on the link now. I'll see you there.